Bluffs.
You wearing ratty jackets from Stephen Barry's, praying one day Big Red will win the NIT.
Ham is the water of meats.
Ham the water of meats.
Ham is the water of meats.
Someone needs for bacon.
Ham is the water of meats. Ham is the water of meats. Ham is the water of meats.
Ham the water of meats.
Ham is the water of meats.
Welcome, everybody. It is a Monday, and we are joined live from his garage. Jack Mitchell live in Darlington, where his race car is being prepared for Wednesday's race. How you doing?
Yeah, I just want to thank the Pepsi-Cola crew team. The Napa Auto Parts tires that I was racing on were really good. The Busch Light transmission was really firing on all cylinders
Busch
today.
Light does not make transmissions.
I like how your accent is getting stronger and stronger the longer that your answer goes, Jack.
Yeah, I decided this is, all the experts that are on TV, they always sit in front of the bookshelves. I decided this is like the blue collar type bookshelf. Got all my products and tools behind me, many of which I've never used. They're all back there.
Coolers.
Those shelves Those shelves look amazingly not very stable. Like, I'm worried that you're going to have a collapse here at some point. Please tell me they're more reinforced than they look.
They've been fine for 12 years, John. I think they're going to be all right.
Okay. All right. Well, if they collapse during this segment, don't say I didn't tell you.
That's true.
Real quick, I spent the reason I'm here, I spent 10 minutes in my house trying to find a place where I could get Wi-Fi. I would try it out on my back porch, and where there's not like piles of dirty laundry or there aren't three other people doing a Zoom. And now I've ended up in my garage because it's close to my router and it's nice out, and I'm not interrupting anyone. And you guys don't have to see, my dirty house. So
I kind of wanted to see the dirty. I mean, we got a tour of it over and over and over. You just kept walking back and forth and back and forth. So we saw it. It's fine.
Couldn't find a spot. Now I got one. What's up?
Well, we bring you on amidst encouraging news. The states already today, New York, California, and Texas have announced that they're opening their states to pro sports at the beginning of June. Florida's college system is going to open up for students this fall. It seems like a lot of the roadblocks to sports getting back are being lifted. And so at least this is probably one of the more encouraging days that we've had in the last 2 months that something's going to return.
I didn't know that. California, did you say?
Yeah, they just announced.
California did too. Gavin Newsom announced it too, within hours of Andrew Cuomo making the same statement in New York.
Wow, because California was the one that was all, Gavin Newsom in the past was the one who was really, really pushing back on the idea that this was going to happen. In fact, you had places like Arizona and Florida, I thought, were pretty clearly trying to draw California teams to move down into those states and basically operate out of those states. I think particularly baseball. I always thought that was the play by the state of Arizona, but evidently that's not going to be necessary if they get baseball going.
Yeah, how much of it's just the pressure you think from the leagues or from the money makers and putting this on California, like, hey, we are going to lose out on a lot that other states could take, because it is quite the shift. I mean, there was a date that one of the listeners sent to us.
It was 1 month ago. April exactly 1 month ago.
Wouldn't allow MMA, and so to have such a stark change that quickly, my only guess just has to be pressure and money.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, I didn't ever think that was going to be prohibitive of baseball getting started, because I thought those California teams and maybe New York teams would move, like you said, maybe to their spring training facility and get started. So I didn't ever think that was going to be a big hang up, but it doesn't hurt, certainly in the whole scheme of things as well. It does kind of ruin my idea, though. I got kind of beat up on Twitter for this. I still don't think it's a terrible idea, or would have been, if there were states where there just teams were not going to be able to play in an empty ballpark for baseball. I'm thinking, I see no reason, but everybody else was going to play in their ballparks. TD Ameritrade should have tried to host a major league team in the empty stadium for the time they were there. It would have made a whole lot of sense. There would have been a lot of reasons why that might have worked. Doesn't look like that's going to be necessary now, because I don't know what other state guys trying to think what other states might
What
have
about
teams
Michigan?
where that would be prohibited. Michigan,
about
maybe.
Michigan?
Chicago, maybe.
I think it sounds like Illinois. I thought I had seen something that J.B. Pritzker, who's the governor of Illinois, I don't know if they made the big announcement that it sounds like they're being very encouraging. But if there was a state, Detroit, aka Michigan, would probably be one to watch because certainly there's been a lot of protests going on there. But if you're looking for a TD Ameritrade-esque like idea, because if you're going to keep baseball in your general regions, it's got to be you're not going to move like the Anaheim Angels to TD Ameritrade, but you could have the Tigers play at TD Ameritrade so that the whole divisional structure of the proposed schedule stays intact. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a good idea.
If you're Detroit, would you rather go there or would you rather go to your spring training? I don't know. They're probably in Florida, but would you rather go to
Florida?
They're in Florida, but Arizona was the other one who was vying to try and get these teams down there. Who wants to go to Arizona in an outdoor facility and play in 110 degrees every day? I mean, the Diamondbacks have an indoor facility, but these spring training facilities they'd be playing in, it'd be miserable for most of the games. I'm sure they'd rather be somewhere that's a little closer to home and a little bit more temperate, even though hot, more temperate than Arizona.
Greg in Lincoln, it's funny. He comments, he says, don't we want to see things where things went health-wise after soccer games on Saturday? And I did want to ask you about that, Jack. Not so much like, did you watch and do you care, but more, what is there to learn, do you think, from soccer reopening in Germany or NASCAR, coming back in America? We've had UFC. How much can we actually learn from these sports, whether it is a completely different, sport that's not so much team, is more individual based like NASCAR, and the team sports over in Europe? Is there anything you think that we can learn from them?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that from the beginning. I thought for baseball with the models of, it's not exactly the same, but the models of what's going on in Korea and Taiwan, absolutely. If I'm making the decisions for Major League Baseball, I am absolutely delving into what's happening there, how it's working on a number of levels, from just the game, how it operates itself, how the portrayal on TV is looking, to obviously the medical things, the testing, the precautions, the plans for if there would be someone who would test positive. I would absolutely delve into that. And then when more sports open up, and I think probably the soccer is the best comparison just because you got so much physical contact in soccer, that's probably the best chance for something like that to happen. I don't know how much you can learn from NASCAR. But yeah, to me, I think given that a few weeks and more sports doing that, I don't know why those leagues wouldn't be completely just dialing in to find out what's happened and how that's gone and where there have been mistakes and where there have been successes.
It's all about the optics, though. And as long as NASCAR goes off without a hitch, as long as Bundesliga goes off without a hitch, and anything else, UFC goes off without a hitch, then everything's going to be fine. The real test is going to be what happens if a NASCAR team member tests positive. What happens if a Bundesliga player tests positive? That's going to be the next real test. Right now, it seems very safe and comfortable to say, yeah, full speed ahead. We're working on it. We're making plans. But it's when that first obstacle shows up that is really going to test the mettle of any sport that's coming back. And so I think you're still gonna have a lot of people observing, how you handle those situations and how you move from there. But right now, as I pointed out in the last segment, there's a lot of follow the leader. And if the leader you're following seems to be heading you in the right direction, then everyone's going to get in lockstep and do the same. That's why everybody fell in lockstep with the NBA back in March, and that's why people are starting to fall in line now.
Yeah, here's the scenario that I think about. It's not just when there's one positive test, but I assume if and when there's a positive test, and we're kind of hinting at baseball here, but I suppose basketball would be the same way, then I assume they go through and contact trace all of them for whatever isolation that they've been in within the league. They test everybody. It's not what happens if you get, just one, but what happens then if you get, 15 people that were all together, and what's the plan going to be that way? I know baseball's been adamant that they won't shut the whole thing down. They get a positive test, and I wouldn't either for one test, but you've got to go through and trace the whole thing afterwards. And it's the results of that are going to potentially lead to the more difficult decisions than a single test. And the other thing is, John, baseball's talking, I think they were talking, 15,000 tests a week in that document that came out Friday, something in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
you are still going to have a major PR issue on your hand if you're doing 15,000 tests a week and there are still nursing homes that aren't getting fully tested, if there are still not meatpacking plants or prisons or hospitals or first responders around the country where they're not getting quick rapid tests, where they're not doing the same, essentially that same battery that baseball players would be doing. That's a little bit of a tough PR hill to climb, I think. Not that baseball can necessarily transfer their tests and not do it, but I still think that's a difficult PR hill to climb.
Yeah,
I know that they have, real quick, Josh, I know that they have contracted with a firm in Utah as far as how they're going to conduct all of this. And I know, that brings in a whole different set of circumstances based on this Test Nebraska situation that's happening here. But it sounds like baseball's got, something in plan, some kind of a plan in place to be able to execute this without taking the PR hit. We'll see. So far, we haven't heard much about that part of it, but I guess we won't see anything until it actually goes into fruition.
Yeah, and the thing I wonder about, Jack, going back to what you said in the first part of that answer, it seems like, at least from all reports, that one positive test is not going to end in anything, and it's not going to cause for the league to stop. But I keep wondering what that number is. Is it 3 guys? Is it 4 guys? Is it a percentage of a roster or a percentage of the overall number of people that are involved in the situation? Is it a number of people? And I don't know if that will be in the document. I guess it has to be at some point, right? You have to make that decision of, if there's 5% of a roster or whatever that tests positive, then we have to stop. I'm very curious as to what they ultimately decide with that number and what it means.
Yeah, and it probably is in that big document that came out Friday. There's got to be some thresholds, or at least a pause that they deal with this whole thing. But yeah, that option probably has to be there, and the players are probably getting the mandates there through these negotiations, which I don't know where they are. I don't know. I know they submitted that. I'm not sure if the biggest hangup has to do with the medical policies that are going to go along with it, or reluctance in general from some of the players from doing this, or if it's still about the revenue sharing.
Well, and there's another great write-up. Jeff Passan, who's been like the MVP of the league so far this year, wrote another great piece today that spells out a lot of – it basically puts a player in the day in the life of all the different restrictions. And when you read it, it's like, wow, they're going to be asked to take their temperature, with, MLB approved thermometers that everyone's going to get assigned before they leave their residence or leave their hotel room. And then there's certain times where they can arrive. There's certain buses they can be on. The windows of the bus have to be open. They got to be masked up until they get on the field. I mean, you'll have to read it, and we'll tweet out the link a little bit later on. But there's a lot of things in there. I don't know if there is in that we'll call it procedures guide, for lack of a better term. I don't think there is an actual, okay, we're shutting things down if this happens. I don't believe that is in there. If it was, I would have thought that Passan would have reported it.
Yeah, that's true. I can't believe that's not out there, though.
My guess is that those are the types of things that are probably those types of things probably aren't being publicized, but they're probably being discussed as part of, the general negotiation between the owners and the players.
John, the one other thing that I would throw in there, and just kind of in terms of the public acceptance of this, or just the feeling that it can happen. And I think you and I talked about this on my show a couple of weeks back. You're going to start having on June 1st, youth and high school baseball practices happening around the state of Nebraska. I presume if that isn't already happening in other states, I'm not sure what other states are doing about that. They may already be going on by them. There'll be not Major League Baseball games happening, but baseball games happening in other states. That is going to be kind of a threshold, I think. If that happens and it happens, it works, it's okay, there aren't huge problems, and we may not know for a while, but just the actual perception that can even happen will probably alleviate or kind of change the way that we look at something like Major League Baseball being played as well. And that's going to be something that's happening in the next few weeks. It'll seem more normal.
Yeah, and there'll be more fans allowed at Nebraska Legion games than there will be at Wrigley Field or Kauffman Stadium.
It's crazy. I know. We're getting all the guidelines. We're getting all the guidelines right now. My son's going back to practice or he's scheduled to go back to practice on June 1st. I know one of the youth leagues, Major League Youth Leagues, just announced today in Lincoln that they're going to get started with practices on June 1st. Cities are renting fields in Lincoln now, starting June 1st. It's still a little crazy, but that's going to happen. It sounds like 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jack, as we talk this out, whether it's, Little League sports returning or the restaurants, we're a week and a half into the restaurants being opened again, and now pro sports theoretically. I feel like we're in a very interesting part of all of this because we had the initial thing 2 months ago and everything just ramped up so quickly. And we kind of got stuck in that position, I'd say, for a month or so, where it was just like, all right, this is where we are. Then we started exploring the ideas of things returning. And now we're there. And even though we are there, I still feel like it's a kind of like all right, looking around and seeing, okay, what's next? It almost feels like we've gotten to the point we've been waiting for, and there still seems to be this, all right, so now what's going to happen? And we're all just kind of waiting for some sort of a shoe to drop. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even the governor, I got done watching the governor's press conference today, and he got the question, are you thinking about making some loosening of restrictions prior to June 1st? And he said, well, not really. No, because on May 4th, we changed the DHM, did the restaurants like you were talking about, the churches. And he said it usually is going to take a while to see what that does in terms of impact, especially for hospital capacity. So he wants to wait and see what the impact on hospital capacity is before they make a decision to go forward. So you're exactly right. Each one of these, Josh, I think leaders are doing these. They're scaling them back to some degree, and then they're just kind of waiting to see. And the crazy thing about it is, I don't know if you guys saw, like the numbers in Georgia and Texas, 2 states that were a couple of the first states to open some things up, they've gone completely different directions. Texas is spiking, and Georgia has pretty much flatlined. And Georgia was getting killed when they opened up. And I haven't heard a good explanation why these different things are happening. There's just so much. Everybody who knows exactly what to do about this and this virus and what it's going to do, I almost don't care who they are. They don't. I mean, everybody expert is still even saying, look, we just don't know so many things. And so because we don't know, even the experts don't know so many things, it's hard to make a decision on how to proceed safely going forward.
Yeah, real quick, Jack, kind of along those lines, like when this is all over at some point in time, just the research into why some people were affected, like not at all, that they had it, but they were totally asymptomatic. And then others, of course, died. It's just, you want to talk about the literal opposite ends of the spectrum. And that's just the crazy part about this is that we still don't know anything really, it seems like at times, and that it can affect some people's lives to the absolute worst, and then other people, maybe they had it and they didn't know, or if they did, it felt like a normal cold and then they moved on. It's pretty crazy because you just think about getting sick and what that does to somebody, that this one can have 2 totally opposite ends of the spectrum. It's just kind of fascinating to me in a weird way.
Yeah, I still believe, even a couple of months ago, the experts, this gets brought up to me all the time because I wear a mask, but I got a lot of people talk to me who are kind of anti-mask, and they say, hey, well, Fauci and the Surgeon General were saying like 6-7 weeks ago that wearing a mask made no sense and not to do it. And now they've totally changed on that. Our understanding and about the things going along with this right now, about what the virus does, about all of this, it gets a lot more really quickly as we go through time. I think by the time you get 3 months from right now, I don't know if there's going to be a vaccine. There probably won't be a vaccine yet, but even treatments at that point. But it feels like if you extrapolate what we know and how quickly things are being learned about the virus at that time, I'm just hoping that knowledge is going to make a big difference in how much you're able to kind of open things up and get back to normal, from treatments to where it's spreading the worst, to how it's spreading, to which people it's spreading to the things, Josh, that you were talking about. That to me is one of the things that I'm hopeful in.
One good thing that, reminds me again that life is still, as well, it's not normal, but it's at least getting back to normal, is that politicians, when they stray too far away from their comfort zone, all come across sounding like idiots. So what was your take on Ben Sasse? By the way, Fremont, I was available.
Your boy.
I am a graduate too, and my speech would have been better. I guarantee it. Even if I'd have played armpit noises for 6 minutes, my speech would have been better. But what was your take on Ben Sasse and his that was
weird, my first thought is you're definitely getting an invite for 2021 as the in the top 5 all time.
I will not make fun of psychologists, people named Jeremy, the Chinese. I won't do any of that. I promise.
I don't even know where to start. It was rough.
I just thought
it was
the tone was just really weird, especially for only, what was it, a 6-minute deal?
the thing is, there wasn't just one problem. There were lots of problems. And
I know.
so, I mean, you could start at the core thing is he got with the Chinese that the blaming China thing is a very sort of partisan, thing right now where it's some people believe that's code for it wasn't Trump's fault. And right away, you get in that right at the beginning. That just at the outset, that feels like a place you don't want to go at a graduation speech, but whatever. That's one thing. Then number two is what you said, John. The tone, the entire thing was so dark and depressing. It was like,
Welcome to
wow. I mean, this has already been rough enough. I would think this might be a time for something that was celebratory, but it was just bizarrely a bizarre downer out of the whole thing. And then, of course, at the end, you had the, we're Nebraskans and we're gritty and we rub our hands in the mud and we get dirty, so we'll be fine. But I mean, I felt like you could have had a more inspired was not what I would have felt, or I saw that. And number three, maybe the least important to most people, but the most important to me, and I'll tell him next time I talk to him. But he did some of the worst job setting up jokes I have ever seen in my life to get to punchlines that were mediocre. I mean, that was a masterclass in how not to do comedy. Holy cow!
By the way, we never climbed ropes in gym class, so I'm going to accuse the senator of fake news. He graduated 1 year after I did. I don't ever remember being asked to climb a rope. We did pull-up drills. We never did climbing ropes.
I did. We did ropes at Holmes Elementary. I did that. I got all the way to the top and rang the bell once.
I think the thing that stood out to me the most, and it's kind of along the lines of what you hit on early in what you had to say, Jack, is like there seemed to be bipartisan support of just thinking the whole thing was garbage. It wasn't there. Like I read a lot of responses, and not even like one of them was like, yeah, but he was funny. It was like the pushback was, hey, you're taking this way too seriously. But nobody was like, yeah, it was a good speech, which like that's rough. That you don't even get any partisan support of. No, he was funny. It was not funny.
That's right. If it was great and he just threw the China thing in there twice, that would have been one thing. But then combine just the weird darkness about the whole thing, and the dad jokes on. I mean, he made dad jokes look hilarious. It was rough,
and it just goes to show you. And listen, this has been this way too. I don't know if you guys have noticed it watching comedy shows. Not having the live audience respond changes the entire perspective you get on the joke. The joke might be the same and the joke might be good, but when you don't have that live reaction, we were talking about it in the first segment, Josh. Think of all the great moments in sports.
Mm-hmm.
They all feel dramatically different without the human reaction factor of the fans, the band, the cheerleaders, the athletes themselves. Without that, the moments are different. Same thing with humor. If you're going to go there with humor, you better be prepared to have something really well written, because if you don't get the reaction, even the groans, some of Johnny Carson's best monologues was when he bombed and the crowd was like, oh, and then he'd react.
Make fun of it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, the good news is if any of us do at some point get asked to deliver a commencement speech at our alma maters or somewhere in town, I feel like now the pressure to be incredibly profound is completely off. Like there is a baseline now. And like I would have been nervous I was asked to do that. Now I feel like I'm going to be able to skate right in there over Senator Sass, and everybody's going to be like, well, that wasn't the best, but it wasn't Sass. So that was much better.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of?
But it wasn't Sass. That sounds like a campaign slogan.
As we talk it out, it reminds me of there's an episode of Seinfeld. It's one of my favorites, where the dentist Watley becomes Jewish, and he does so for the jokes. And so he's starting to tell all of these jokes that would be construed as anti-Semitic. And somebody asks Jerry, like, "Oh, are you offended as a Jewish person?" And he goes, "No, I'm offended as a comedian." And that's how I do. Like, it was just not funny.
I like when he went to the Murder Hornets, I was like, "No, you're a week late on the Murder Hornets."
Yeah, Tiger King jokes. What is it? March the 22nd? Come on, nobody's watching Tiger King anymore.
You're killing me. You're killing me. Just going to the low-hanging fruit with the humor. Oh. No pants on a Zoom? Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Okay. Well, on that funny note, we probably did a better commencement speech in those 24 minutes than Ben Sass did in 7. Just if you want to, schools, you can just take this segment right off YouTube, play it back. It'll work just fine. I'm sure it'll be just as engaging. And you'll get to see Jack's garage in the background. Let's take a closer look here. Let's see. Let's break it down a little.
Ooh, you got a lot of coolers, Jack.
Yeah, you got a lot of coolers.
And a lot of gas cans.
Why do you have 5 gas cans? You have something you want to tell us? I mean, are you planning on blowing something up? Is this your 4th of July thing?
I have 2 different mixtures for different, like my old weed whacker used to use a gas oil mixture, and then I have another tiller that uses a different mixture. We do have probably 2 more.
You been them boys using my weed whacker in the camper? Sorry.
Not the line, but sort of.
It's not the line. I just wanted to go down the line.
And by the way, we normally, let's see, I don't know why we put things in a Franzia box there. I think that's a different Franzia than the boxed wine.
That's the boxed wine, right? Is that the boxed
wine? No,
I
don't. I think it's some other garden product or something, just so people know.
No, but wasn't Franzia the one that made the boxed wine?
Yeah, yeah.
He's saying it's a different Franzia, John.
I don't think that's what that is. So there you go.
So there's 2 different companies named Franzia. Okay, cool.
It's like how there were 2 WWFs. Remember that?
Yeah, but one of them had to give it up, and that's why they changed. There was a lawsuit. It was a messy.
And by the way, over here, I got this gas-powered trimmer for Father's Day. It was a nice gift. I hate it. I now have an electric one that's over here that is way better.
Nice.
Oh yeah, the electric one is boss. Especially when
it's not electric, rechargeable.
Yes, but you get the same. You get the same blower, the leaf blower, as you do the trimmer, and you can use the same battery pack.
That's what we got.
Oh, is it a Black & Decker?
We got that. Yep.
We got the same one. We can swap batteries. Let's go battery swapping.
I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
You're not ready for battery swapping? Okay.
No, but anyway, if anybody wants that gas-powered one, I want to get rid of it because it's annoying. It doesn't work very well.
All right, call this the Craigslist of talk radio right here.
That's great. I keep doing this in my house during these uncertain times. I'm going around I got to clean crap up, get rid of stuff. Maybe I can just come with you guys and just take a tour around my house. John, it'll be like when Wheel of Fortune did the go through the room and pick your stuff.
I missed that.
The service merchandise gift certificate.
The Service Master gift certificate.
I'll take that nice cat statue and the grandfather clock and the coffee table. What's that leave me with? Oh, about $200. We'll put that on a service merchandise gift certificate. Get it, Josh?
Yeah. We just made fun of Sass for having 2-week-old references, and now you're talking about something from 2 decades ago? Come on.
Well, Mitch going with the Johnny Carson reference, so appreciate the old guy connection. Yeah.
Right in the same era with what we're talking about, John.
That's right.
Jake
exact same era.
Sucks.
What?
All right.
Jake says this new segment sucks.
What? Describing the items in Jack's garage?
No, I think he meant old guy hour when you were talking about movies and shows from the 60s.
I'm telling you, man, that should be your next contest. In fact, if you want to do that Wednesday instead of our regular bit together, let's just play a game of Radio Wheel of Fortune and then have people go out and pick items out of your garage and then just put the rest on a service merchandise gift card.
That sounds good. We can do that.
The only thing priced will be the gas trimmer.
Free.
All right, Jack. Take care.
Bye, Jack.
Later. Have a good one.
That's our friend Jack Mitchell from KLIN, live from his garage. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, good stuff.
I like it. I like doing it from the garage.
Congrats to whomever gets his weed whacker for free. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, gas-powered weed whackers. I had one, and once the thing goes bad and you're trying to retune it, it's a pain in the ass. Give me electric all day. All day.
Look at you, saving the environment at the same time.
No, I make up for that because I have my own coal-powered furnace. That charges the thing. It makes electricity. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I have my own coal station, and then I go in the backyard and I dig for coal. Comment. Yep. To hell with all that stuff. I like to pollute the atmosphere.
Wow.
We will be back with more. Parker Gabriel's going to join us in about 25 minutes or so.
Nice.
So stick around for that and a lot more here on 1620 The Zone.
Bye, YouTube.